Hello, one and all, and welcome to this video of mine in which I'm going to be presenting my thoughts on last night's Stone Cold podcast with special guest, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Overall, it was a 49-minute episode. It was not live as the previous Stone Cold podcast have been. However, it was pre-taped down at Austin's Broken Skull Ranch. So it was a little bit different this time, with it not being live. There wasn't really, it just had an overall different feel. But that certainly did not take away from my enjoyment of the Stone Cold podcast with Shawn Michaels. I thought overall this was an enjoyable episode, one of the better ones. I'm a fan, huge fan of Austin, and Shawn Michaels is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers. Probably in ring wise is nobody comes close to Shawn. He was, in my opinion, the best I've ever seen in the ring. And it was such a treat to have Austin and HBK sit down and have an awesome conversation. I really felt like this podcast, I could have listened to them talk for another hour. I mean, I talked about a lot of good stuff throughout this episode. And like I said, I really enjoyed it. It's something that if you own the network, you definitely need to check out. It was another good episode in the series of Stone Cold podcasts. So, just gonna not in really any order. Just gonna let you know what I thought about what they talked. They talked early on about Shawn, him retiring, and what he's really most concerned about in life now. His family. He talked about his children and how that he's a family man, and it's good to see him. Glad Shawn has retired. He's enjoying retirement. He has no desire to come back. That wasn't even brought up at all throughout the podcast. So I think, I would hate to see him come back because the way that they gave him that send-off with the match with The Undertaker at WrestleMania 26 was so special. But it's up to him if he would like to come back. Oh, hell yeah, I'd love to see Shawn Michaels come back for one more match. However, it's just happy to know that he's at a great place in his life and is able to enjoy time with his wife and kids, because that's really what it's all about. So he talked about that. They also brought up, of course, the Montreal Screwjob, Shawn's involvement with that. He said he was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I mean, yeah, he went along with it, but it wasn't something that he wanted to do. But being in the situation at that time, he had no other choice. So it was interesting to hear his thoughts on that. Austin and him also talked about Ric Flair, and they both said that they agree that Flair is the greatest of all time in their opinions, and definitely I have to agree Ric Flair is one of the greatest of all time. Is he the greatest of all time? It's a subjective question, so everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but definitely he is one of the greatest of all times, and they brought up that epic match between Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. Shawn talked about how it was such an honor to be able to be Ric Flair's final opponent in a World Wrestling Entertainment ring. How much that meant to him. He was a young fan watching at the age of 15, watching Ric Flair, main event, is the NWA champion, working in WCW, and just watching Ric Flair go throughout the territories, and somebody that he really idolized, and to be able to be chosen as his final opponent in WWE, Michael said was true honor. And they replayed talked about the part where Shawn, on the third super kick said, "I'm sorry, I love you," and he kicked Ric Flair, and that was an emotional night. And Shawn, he was getting emotional talking about it, and that match. For me, that was the match that made me fall in love with professional wrestling. That was the first match that I had ever seen, and I remember watching that match back in 8th grade. And as soon as I was done watching, I was like, I gotta watch this. And I've been a fan of the business ever since. A quick fact, that was the match that I fell in love with professional wrestling, and been here ever since. So let's see, what else did they talk about? Talked about Shawn and how him and Brett, going back to that, how they were friends early on, and then eventually the jealousy and this personal rivalry grew because Brett was the guy, and he always believed in Shawn, but he felt However, that he was kind of being pushed aside, and Shawn was being positioned as the new guy, and Bret didn't take too kindly to that. And it's understandable, There's only room for one guy at the top of the mountain, and everybody's trying to climb and grab and scratch their way to the top. And it was just interesting to hear that from Shawn, and Austin did a good job throughout this podcast. And then Shawn gave his thoughts on the younger generation, said guys need to strive to, they can emulate, past legends, but they do need to work on finding their own identity to craft their own legacy and differentiate themselves, rather than being dubbed as, oh, he reminds me of, Stone Cold or Shawn Michaels. The next generation of talent need, guys like a Ziggler he mentioned. He put over Bray Wyatt. He said Wyatt reminds him how he could potentially be the next Undertaker. That was a great compliment to be given by Shawn Michaels. So it was great to hear him talk about that. And then finally, they wrapped things up talking about the Clique. Everybody, influential group. They talked about the curtain call and how Triple H was punished as a result of it. He took the fall, and that really led to Austin being able to win the King of the Ring. Gave his famous Austin 3:16 said, "I just whipped your ass" speech. Now that just really launched him to the moon, and it's amazing how certain things happen a certain way, and that really benefited Austin. And they touched on that, and they also talked about his friendship with Triple H and his thoughts on how it was interesting how he said, Vince as the boss can never see things from the side of the boys, the wrestlers. However, now you have a guy like Triple H that when he takes over, he has the knowledge from being around Vince McMahon. But he also was one of the boys. He was one of the wrestlers. So Shawn and Austin think that this will make for a more well-rounded leader to take WWE into the next generation. And Shawn's had positive things to say about NXT. He thinks Hunter's he's doing a great job with it, as we've all seen throughout the past year with NXT. It's on fire. It's awesome. So yeah, overall, those are just some of the highlights throughout this podcast. I cannot alone do this justice. Please take time out of your day. It's only 49 minutes. It's a fun watch. It went by so fast. Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, on the Stone Cold podcast is I can definitely recommend for you. So yeah, that'll do it with this video. Just quick thoughts and opinions on last night's podcast. With that, thank you all for watching. Please click that like and subscribe button for more video content coming to this channel. And yeah, with that, guys, I am out. Have a good day. Peace.